This lesson covers the basics of flipped teaching. This class will utilize either a flipped model or a modified flipped model. Your syllabus will tell you which model your class is using. During today's lesson, you need to look for the following information. You need to be able to define flipped teaching. You need to be able to list the advantages of flipped instruction. You need to be able to describe student responsibilities during a flipped lesson. Learning activities are ways that students keep themselves engaged while viewing a flipped lesson. This can be done in many different ways. Most commonly, this will be done through notes. You will turn notes in for homework grades. We will talk about how you should be taking notes for a flipped lesson or a modified flipped lesson at a later date. Today's learning activity will be a question and answer sheet. You need to write 2 questions you have right now about flipped teaching. If you are viewing this lesson at home, this would be a good point to pause your video. During the lesson, while you're watching, you're going to try and answer the questions you've written down. We'll have time to do a Q&A again at the end to answer any questions that weren't answered during the video itself. After every flipped lesson will be a comprehension check, otherwise known as a quiz. These quizzes are open notes. There will be a quiz today for practice, so you might want to jot some things down as you cover the learning objectives during the lesson. Flipped teaching switches the traditional location for homework and lecture. Normally, we have 2 places we learn, at school and at home. At school, you have boring lectures. At home, you have homework. Neither of these is all that much fun. In a flipped model, these are switched around. What you usually consider homework, independent practice, group practice, worksheets, writing, etc., is going to be done in the classroom. The lecture portion where you get the information will be done through a video posted online. You'll have the link, I'll give you all the information, you go home, you click view, you watch it. And the syllabus covers what to do if you don't have the internet. We'll get to that in a little bit. But that lecture part is done at home. So instead of having worksheets and papers, etc. for homework, you get to watch a 10-minute movie. So it switches the traditional location for homework and lecture. In a modified flipped teaching format, you're going to use some elements of the flipped teaching, but not all of them. So, for example, a modified flipped lesson would show the video in class instead of at home for homework. And you will still take notes, you will still have a quiz, but you'll have more traditional setup. It just kind of changes the way you're getting the lecture information. The advantages to a flipped model are several. You have 24/7 teacher support. When you're at home, you have the lecture, you can rewind, rewatch, do what you need to learn the information. When you have to practice, you're in class with my support. So now you have a teacher pretty much round the clock without me actually having to stay up all day, every day to help you out. You can't miss lecture or notes. Even when you're sick, you can get that video and you can watch the lecture and you know what was talked about in class and what we were working on. Class isn't disrupted by different requests, questions, etc. because my thought isn't interrupted. You're not going to raise your hands, etc. and make me stop talking to answer you because the video will keep playing and I will manage individual situations as I come around the classroom in a flipped and modified format, or you'll be at home all by yourself without any other classmates to interrupt you. Lessons are customizable. You can pause, stop, rewind, rewatch, anything you need to do to get the information you need so that you understand the material. That's really hard to do for a teacher when she has 20 to 30 kids in the class, but you can do this at home by yourself. This also leads to shorter lessons. The typical flipped video is about 10 minutes of recorded length, no more than that. So the part of the flipped model that you're taking home for homework now will take about 10 minutes, possibly 15 to 20 if you're really doing what you're supposed to do and making sure you have that material. 20 minutes of homework instead of hours of homework. Better trade-off. Advantages to a modified format include not missing lecture or notes because you can still watch that video from home if you're gone and you miss class, and minimized class disruptions. You can still customize lesson material because you can always go home and rewatch the material by yourself. Modified lessons may or may not be any shorter depending on what we need to pause for during class to make sure that there's comprehension. But you still have the 24/7 teacher support because if you forgot something we talked about in class, you can go back and rewatch the video. Despite its advantages and the simplicity to a flipped model, you still have to exert some effort in order to learn. A student has to take charge of his or her learning by watching the video carefully, taking careful notes, customizing the video viewing to your needs, pause, rewind, rewatch. In a modified flipped model, lesson customization will need to be done on the student's own time. You'll have to do this from home, not in class. You need to check for comprehension. When we get going with the flipped model, there will be quizzes and practice quizzes and things like that on your Edmodo page, which we will again talk about later. And you need to review the material as you need to. So if you didn't get it the first time, go back and watch it again. These are your responsibilities. I'm not going to be the one who's on your case for them, but if you're not doing it, your grade will suffer. Your understanding will suffer. This is what I am expecting of you in the flipped model. In closing, flipped teaching swaps traditional locations for lecture and homework and provides more support and student empowerment. That does come with responsibilities. We will be working with a flipped model or a modified flipped model for the rest of the year.